Bala bamba, bala bamba, para bailar la bamba, para bailar la bamba necesito un poco de gracia, un poco de gracia. What comes next? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Fireside Tales, episode 5. It's the last one of the Mexico series. I've just got a Mexican song playing in my head. Why? Because I was playing it last night. Para bailar la bamba necesito un poco de gracia, un poco de gracia. Something, something, I forgot the words. Anyways, welcome, welcome. Good evening from Nairobi, wherever you are tuning in from. Narissa here, Nomad Girl. Welcome to say hi in the chat so I know who's watching. And today we're having episode 5, which is the last of the Mexico, I guess I'll call it a season, even though it's only 5 episodes long. I've been sharing with you extracts from my Mexico diary, so we're saying bye to this one. Don't worry, there are tons of diaries more waiting to be shared. But after today's show, I'm going to be taking a break from Fireside Tales for a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2. And I'll be sharing other kinds of videos before we come back. Hello, Shire. So today, I would love to share with you the story of ecotourism in southern Mexico. So this is when I went hiking in some remote hill villages in Mexico. So yeah, so Edgar's just texted saying I could tell you were singing even though my sound was off. I'm going to show you. Hi, Mohammed. I'm going to show you some of my equipment. So this is what I got in Mexico when I went hiking there in 2013 or 2014. I think this was after New Year, so it was 2014. So I promised some shows ago I would show you my hiking boots. Here are my good old hiking boots. Oh my goodness, they want to be used so badly. Who wants to go hiking if Nairobi containment is over soon? Let's go hiking, please. These are the boots. I bought them in 2012. Yep, they have been serving me since 2012 and they're still going strong. And this is my other piece of hiking equipment that I bought just for this particular trip that I'm telling you about. This is my super warm jacket. And I look like a kid in it. I think I look like I'm 5 when I wear this. Don't you think? Anyways, I just thought I'd share with you some of the actual equipment that I used because that's quite cool. I still have it. Super warm windbreaker. No, this is not an advertisement because I don't know where I got these from. Actually, I know where I got the shoes from. The shoes were from REI. That's in the States. The jacket, I bought it in Mexico just before going hiking, along with some other really cool warm pants, which got torn along my backpacking travels. So, oh, thanks, Mohammed. I see you like my boots. I love them too. So basically, to end my time in Mexico, I decided to go hiking in the remote hill villages in the south, still in Oaxaca. So still in that beautiful, beautiful state of Oaxaca. Now, you know, when I've told you about Mexico, I've only shared about my time in Mexico City, DF, in Michoacan, and in Oaxaca. There are so many states. Mexico has so many states, all so beautiful. I really need to go back. Yeah, I also spent some time in Tijuana, camping in the desert with my partner at that time. So basically, ecotourism, I went to the Sierra Norte mountains. And over here, I found some, there were several different companies that were selling tours, but I went for one that was a community-led organization, and all the profits that they made from their tours would go back into the community. All the guides were from the community. And yeah, so I went for the cheapest option, which was to have a Spanish-speaking guide take me through the mountains. So yeah, I think you might remember I didn't speak Spanish, eh? So in a previous episode, I talked about how lonely I got. This was my loneliest point because I went hiking in the remote villages in southern Oaxaca in the hills with a guide that only spoke Spanish. So he could communicate with the other villagers. I couldn't communicate with anyone. But I didn't want the bilingual guide because I was being cheap. I was really, saving every buck. So yeah, good experience, especially since it was my first time backpacking. But yeah, I think I talked about that in episode 1 or 2. So the place that I went, let me tell you a little about it, and then I'll read you a bit from my diary. I went to these villages called Los Pueblos Mancomunicados. I hope I have pronounced it right. Yes. And it was amazing. So I only hiked for 3 days. So each day, so I started off at a place called Cuajimoloyas, and I ended up in a place called La Tuvi. And it was just beautiful green hills and crazy, weird and wonderful plants, flowers, pines, cacti, things that smelled odd, things that smelled great. And I would walk, I think, between 12 to 16 kilometers a day. That's not too bad. So that's maybe, I think, 3 to 4 hours of hiking. And every evening we would stop in one of the villages in these hills and sleep there for the night. And I got to stay in, these were very tiny, tiny villages, maximum a couple of hundred people living in each. And there would be a cabana, that's a cabin that I would sleep in. And eat in the local restaurants, very small local gigs. That's basically what it was about. So what I would advise if you do go to Oaxaca in Mexico and decide to hike in Los Pueblos Mancomunicados, I would definitely advise that you look for a tour agency or a tour guide that is local. So the one that I went with was called Expediciones Sierra Norte. They were smaller at the time. I know they've grown quite a bit, but the proceeds from them all went back to the community, whereas there are also some foreign tour agencies there. But of course, those did not feed back to the community. So just to give you an idea of how remote the area was, I'll read you about, what is this? Oh, I hiked from the Cuajimoloyas to La Tuvi. La Tuvi was the second village I went to. So then after that, I went to a place called La Neveria. So I'll read you about La Neveria. La Neveria has 80 people living in it. It's tiny. The smallest pueblo of the comunidades means communities, of the Sierra Norte. Each family has around 6 people, which makes around 13 families living in this pueblo. Wow. Tiny, tiny village. And so Edgar's just written a comment saying, every time you say cabana, I think of capana, small mouse in Kiswahili. Cabana, like cabin. That's hilarious. So when I was walking to this tiny village of La Neveria, my guide, so when I wrote here, my guia is guide in Spanish. My guia, I asked him what he wanted in life. He said his aim in life was several agricultural projects, like more horses, more bulls. And he said that most people's, aims and dreams in this part were along those lines of agriculture. which is very interesting to me because I'm come from the city. So yeah, it's a very different sort of life. And Ames, I've never dreamed of having more horses or bulls, because I never even owned a single horse or a bull. La Neveria has only one school for kids up to 10 years old. The nearest town, La Tuvi, has 3 schools, and kids there can attend up to the age of 15, right? Beyond that, straight into agriculture for most. Very, very few make it to the capital, Oaxaca, or another nearby town after the age of 15. And this is if they have enough money. So yeah, very, very remote, as you can tell by what facilities they had. And not all of the pueblas have medical facilities. They're very scanty. So of the 6 pueblos, only 3 had a clinic at the time that I went, a medical clinic, and the clinic only had 1 or 2 beds. So if anyone needed, hospitalization, they would have to travel to the capital, Oaxaca City, which is quite far, if they had enough money for that. So super, super remote. And when I was, kind of shocked at this, my guide said, he said, most people here are strong and healthy. So yeah, I guess, living that kind of life, you're often a lot fitter and more healthy than, when you live in the city. So yeah, reasons to move out of the city and have a more hands-on lifestyle. Been thinking a lot about that recently. Planning to see if it's possible to move out of Nairobi soon. So before I move on to the next little story, I'd love whoever is online to just take a vote. So after I've read this story, I would like to give you a choice whether you'd like to hear about, I have 2 different stories I could tell you. So depending on the time, I could tell you both or just one. So if you could vote whether you'd like to hear about how to make the local brew, that's the local alcohols, called tepache and pulque, which are made from a cactus. So that's one option you can vote for. And the other option you could vote for is for me to tell you about my first time hitchhiking. So yeah, maybe you could just type your vote into the chat box, and then after the next story, I can tell you about the one that you vote for. So let's move on to the next little story that I've been wanting to tell you since I started this series about Mexico. The most magical moment of this trip, life-changing moment, it happened at this point in my trip while I was hiking in these remote hills and hill villages. This moment in my life is actually one of the most precious moments that I have held dear to my heart till date. Yeah, and it was not an encounter with another human. And it wasn't an encounter with an animal, although I have another very special moment with an animal that happened in Bolivia, but that's a story for the Bolivia series. This magical encounter was with a flower. So, honestly, I think back to that moment till date. Let me read you. I wrote about it in my diary. I decided to stroll around the tiny village. One of the most relaxed strolls of my life, not least because I was alone and without a worry on my mind. Slowly looking at everything, the maize fields, the river, the greenhouses, the turkeys, the donkey, what a hee-haw. Little school, church, stopping to examine and smell every beautiful flower, contemplating, gradually, completely relaxing. The magical moment came after I strolled down and then up a little path through maize fields and happened across a majestic red flower that looked like fire. And I drew it here. And if you can see this little flower here, it looked like that. I walked over to it, and filled with wonder and awe, I slowly reached over to touch this divine object. I gingerly, delicately, and tenderly ran my fingers up and down the flower, feeling the little red flames knock against each other, observing, listening to the light rattling sound, completely absorbed in discovering, quote unquote, this new beauty through touch, sight, and sound. I was filled with the innocent curiosity, wonder, and joy of learning that a young child feels while exploring the world for the first time. Simple and magical. Yeah. So that little experience with the flower has been one of the most profound moments till date. Such purity, such innocence, such childlike bliss, while just coming across this flower and seeing it, the colors touching it, listening to those sounds. So present, so beautiful, you know? And it's amazing how such, seemingly simple experiences, we try and do such crazy things in our life. We want such great things, but honestly, the most blissful moments, when we think of them, they're often quite simple. Watching the sunrise, listening to a river, and for me, encountering this flower. So, yeah, I don't know if you've ever had such a beautiful, pure experience with nature that you might want to share. Feel free to share it in the chat if you can think of one. The funny thing is, if you follow my blog, which is also called nomadgirltales.com, you might notice the logo has some flowers on it that look very much like this flower that is drawn here. And yep, the logo was inspired by this moment, this special flower. Funny thing though, funny thing, false memory. Maybe we're familiar with false memory. Did you know that our memory is completely unreliable? And we all, as humans, make up memories. We literally create memories in our minds, and we often change things that have actually happened in our mind completely. You can never trust your memory. It's been scientifically shown. So the funny thing is, remember I described this flower as a red flower with flames? Well, I remembered it as purple. So the logo is purple. Purple flowers were in my memory. It's hilarious. You cannot trust your memory at all. Okay, so yeah, that was one of the most magical moments of my life. And if you have any questions or sharings, feel free to type them in. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next stories. I can see that the vote is for the brew. The brew made from the alcoholic brew made from cactus. I was kind of hoping you'd ask for the hitchhike. Oh my goodness. So, and Shayura has just asked for hitchhiking. So you have one vote for brew and one vote for hitchhiking. One more vote. Someone type in another vote. Otherwise, I'm just going to get started with brew since there are 2 votes for brew. So I'll get on with the brew then. I'll cover both. I think there's enough time to share about both, which I'm happy about because this is the end of the Mexico series, so I wanted to share everything. So in the first village that I stayed at, which was La Tuvi, I met this lady called Doña Julia. And she's this old lady who is a home brewer of the local alcohol in this particular pueblo. She brews the alcohol at home and she also sells it to the other pueblos. So the whole talk was given in Spanish, and somehow my Spanish had improved enough for me to partially understand what she was saying. So she showed me how to make two different local brews. One is called pulque, and the other one is called tepache. And they were both made from the same cactus. It's called a maguey, spelled Maguey. It's basically it's a huge cactus, and it has thick leaves. And this is different to the plant used for making tequila, which has thin leaves. By the way, if I make any mistakes in this description, it's because of my interpretation issues, my inability to translate Spanish. But this is what I understood. So, and I'll share a picture of this cactus on the Nomad Girl Tales Facebook group so that you can check it out. Now, pulque, you might find pulque in the capital city, but this is different because they're different plant sources and they're found at different altitudes. So the ones that are brewed in this particular area are tangier. So basically you take the leaf and then you have this big leaf and you make a cut in the leaf where it stores the water. And then you collect what they called agua miel, which I believe means, where's my voice gone? And I don't have hot water today. I have cold water. So agua miel, I think agua means water, and miel, I thought it meant honey. So I guess that means honey water in a bottle using a scraper and a funnel, and it takes around a day to fill a 2-liter bottle. This liquid is super sweet and can be drunk immediately, but just half a glass max because the stomach can't handle this much sweetness. It's like super sweet. And then they would add small pieces of wood from a certain tree, whose name I didn't catch, to induce fermentation. Leave overnight to ferment, and kaboom, ready in the morning. And this particular brew must be drunk within 3 days. Otherwise, it goes bad. So this one is just brewed for local consumption. Now the next one, the tepache, which is stronger than the pulque, lasts for longer and is actually what she would sell to the other pueblos. Her process here, make pulque. So you take the ready-made pulque and then you ferment separately. Now I've written here in brackets jaggery. I think it was a brown sugar, and I think it was jaggery. I'm not sure what is jaggery an English word or is that an Indian word? Jaggery. In Hindi, it's called gund, I think. So anyways, it's like the brown, the brown hunk of sugar. So I think that's what you're meant to ferment. And then you add that into the pulque and you let this ferment for 5 days. And then you're done. To drink, add some sugar according to your taste. And I wrote here that this strong drink is dangerously delicious. So I think I really liked the tepache. Yeah. So that's the story of the local brews in Mexico. And they have so many awesome brews. They have, oh yeah, isn't Corona from Mexico? Fun, it's quite sad that people aren't super into drinking Corona beer anymore because of this stupid coronavirus. Corona is actually my favorite beer. Yeah, so Mexico and its beers, it has all the local beers. It has, I swear Corona better be from Mexico, because if I've just put up a live video and it's actually from a different country, I'm going to be in trouble. What do you mean English? Oh, you're telling me that jaggery is in English. Okay, cool. I'm like, no, Corona is not English. And then they have their tequila, that's also from Mexico. And then they have all these local brews, so lots of alcohol. I forget what I was going to say about Corona. Yeah, it's people have stopped drinking it because of this, but it's pretty sad. So let's move on to the last story for today. I can see that there's a new person watching. If you have any questions you want to ask me about, backpacking or this particular story, feel free to ask me in the chat and I'll answer you after the last story. So, Shayur, we're getting on to the hitchhiking. I've not actually done that much hitchhiking in my life. I guess as a backpacker, I tend to err on the side of safety most of the time. People think I'm a risk taker. I feel like I'm quite careful. I go to crazy places and I have crazy experiences, but I always feel like I'm within limits of safety somehow. So I feel like I'd be more comfortable hitchhiking if I was with someone else as well, especially for long distances of hitchhiking. So the hitchhiking, my first ever hitchhike, happened at the end of this hike in the hill villages. So my guide left me and he started hiking back, or biking back through those steep hills to his village. He had been wheeling the bike along our entire hike, and then he left. So I had 1 hour to walk by myself to reach the main road, which is quite cool. Back then I was not so experienced in hiking on my own. So again, really beautiful experience to be walking on your own in nature, just being so present. Just some of the beautiful things of traveling alone, just such experiences on your own are just so pure. You're not talking, you're just observing all these giant cacti and, you know. So anyways, I reached the main road, and then I'm like, okay, so I need to go to Oaxaca, the capital. Which direction is it in? Is it left or right? I didn't know. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm gonna catch what did I call it? A bus or a taxi colectivo. So these are vehicles these are like the public transport. So I figured I would just wait until a vehicle came along, and then I would ask them which direction is Oaxaca, and then I'd know which side of the road to stand on. But the next vehicle that came was a big old creaky truck. So I was like, I'd been reading this book about hitchhiking, not Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this other one. And so I was like, let me just do the hitchhiking thing. So I stuck out my thumb. I'm probably not even doing it properly. I'm not that experienced. So I can't really do it properly because I'm sitting, but yeah, I stick out the thumb. And the guy pulled over and made space for me in the seat next to him. So I was like, hola, Oaxaca? And then he nods. So I was like, great, okay, cool. So get a ride. So I just hopped in, and the guy was super cool. He was an old man of 78 years old, and he had kids of 40 to 50 years old, grandchildren. He told me he grew up in a tiny village in the Sierra Norte, but moved to Los Angeles, pronounced Los Angeles, if you say it in Spanish. And now his work was to transport clothes and other things between Mexico and Los Angeles to sell. So yeah, I really enjoyed the ride with them, just chatting along in Spanish, chilling, good vibes, you know. This is usually what hitchhiking is like. And funny thing was, he was driving all the way to LA. Now, I was at the end of my trip, and I had to go back to school because I was studying for my master's at this point. So what my plan was to get back to Oaxaca, and then I was going to take a domestic flight. No, from Oaxaca, I was going to go to DF, the capital, and then take a domestic flight from DF back up to Tijuana, and then get to San Diego from there, where I would meet my boyfriend of the time, and we were then going to drive up to school together. We actually studied together. When I heard that this truck driver was going to Los Angeles, I was like, yo, I could totally sit in his truck all the way to Los Angeles, and this means that I could see the whole of Mexico from the truck. Like, all the views, all the way through the north. And you know, I wasn't so comfortable traveling through the north on my own because I was like, it might be safe. So I was like, this could be the perfect way to just see like so much of Mexico. And I think the timing that he said when he was planning to reach there was actually coinciding with similar sort of time to when my plane was going to reach Tijuana. So I spent much of this truck ride debating, should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? Should I not? Okay, in the end, I didn't. I just did my short little hitchhike to Oaxaca. And then I got off at Oaxaca City, the capital. And I said thanks to the guy, and he went on his way. I didn't go with him all the way to Los Angeles. Adventure though it would have been, I didn't for 3 reasons. One was safety. And I really honestly went back and forth on this afterwards. I was like, man, I should have gone. But truth being told, I didn't know him. Where would we have slept? You know, I didn't know. I don't know. I don't know anything about him. It wouldn't have been the safest move on my own. To go all the way up for days or a week, I don't know. So yeah, and then the other reasons were I needed to pick up some stuff from my hostel, which I probably could have, just bought him, paid him something or bought him some lunch, and he wouldn't have minded picking up my stuff, to be honest. But also the timing risk. I didn't trust that old truck to actually reach. It looked like it was going to break down any moment, and I had to make it back because school was starting, and also I had a cool trip planned in the desert, a surprise trip with the boyfriend. So I wanted to make it for that. So yeah, I didn't continue with the hitchhike, but that was my first experience, and it was absolutely wonderful. And I'd really love to do more hitchhiking in the future. It's also, cheaper. You get to meet cool people, similar to the whole vibe of backpacking. Just sort of going with the flow and trusting, but of course there's a risk involved. So I'd love to do it with someone. Yeah. Okay, so we're done with the stories for today. This is your last chance to ask me any questions, or I am going to sign out. So like I mentioned at the beginning, this is the last episode of the Mexico season. And I'm going to take a small break for a few weeks from the Fireside Tales that we've been doing, this live show every Friday. I'm still going to be producing cool content in the meantime until the next, season comes out, which will probably be on Colombia, because that's the next place I went after Mexico. And in the meantime, I will still be writing on my blog. So if you don't already follow it, do head over to nomadgirltales.com and subscribe there. I've also started to produce audios of my blogs. So I record myself reading the blogs, and I put one up on SoundCloud. I'm going to be doing that. They'll all be there on the blog. So you can just click on the link at the top. This is for people who don't really like reading and prefer listening. Yeah, and as for this YouTube channel, it's not going to go dormant, don't worry. I just won't be going live for a bit. So I'm going to be putting up some meditations, some sound healings with the Tibetan singing bowls, some chanting videos. So those are my plans for the next couple of weeks or months, depending on how it goes. Try and put up one a week. That would be really awesome. So stay tuned. If you haven't, then you can just subscribe there and click on the bell so that you also get notified when I post. Yeah, and that's it. So yeah, random things. If you want to donate, there's a button on the homepage. If you want to collaborate on anything, please get in touch with me. And yeah, I have one message here from Shayur saying thanks. Fireside Tales have been great. Thank you for joining every week. It's been so much fun. And yeah, look forward to next time. Lots of love, everyone. Bye-bye.